What the hell was that? I mean, we were just watching Indiana and Illinois play a tough, physical, competitive basketball game. What the hell was that on the ESPN broadcast, right? It was talking about the NBA draft and all sorts of referee arguments and conversations. But the real what the hell was that was the last 6 minutes of regulation and the overtime stretch where Indiana, a team chock full of highly recruited guys, top 100 players, Mr. Basketball's future NBA hopefuls, a highly paid head coach, couldn't put the ball in the basket. And we're going to dissect why in the world the Indiana Hoosiers couldn't score points in crunch time, especially after their star guard fouled out, Nayo Sumu. We're going to discuss all of that and more here on episode 180 of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for IU sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on February 4th, a special Thursday evening edition of the Hoosier Sound, where I am your host, Nithin Christian. Here with me tonight, as usual, podcast co-host Matt Lukens, as well as our newest contributor, Jevan McCoskey. And I know a lot of Hoosier fans out there, Jevan, want to see the IU freshmen get playing time, so we're going to give you a shot here. You're going to start with the ball first. What were your opening thoughts, especially when you focus in on that final stretch of the game where Indiana looked like they were poised to get a huge quad one win and then blew it?
Well, me and Matt were talking a little bit before we started, and I told him, I've been here 3 years. I'm a junior at IU. That last 6 minutes of the second half and the entire overtime was the worst basketball I've seen while being a student at IU. And it comes down to you had the stops on defense that you needed. IU was out. Everyone on both sides was in foul trouble. Attack the rim, get to the foul line. I know we only shoot, seems like 20% from the free throw line. But eventually you're going to hit free throws. Just get to the line, find a way to put the ball in the basket. Dockage kept saying, if you're Illinois, just don't foul because they're not going to score a basket. The only way they're going to score is if you put them at the foul line. And I'm upset about this because I've been a big Archie supporter this whole time. I've not wanted to see people, not talking bad about him because his coaching has warranted it. But I mean, I've joined the dark side as I told you.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, Matt, I know you were fed up on our Slack chat after the game ended on Tuesday night. Has 48 hours changed anything for you? I thought I would cool down after 48 hours. I haven't. What's going on in your mind when you look at this team that is now 9-8 on the season?
Yeah, I'm actually utterly disgusted. At a point I was furious, but now it's just turned into disgust. Now I'm just like, I don't even like. I had a hard time pepping myself to come up onto this podcast because I just was like, I can't be too toxic, but I want to say all the things that I've always wanted to say about what is going on with the program. But I will tone it down. I'm mad, and Jevan and I, again, you mentioned we were talking before, and we were talking about overtime and the offense and overtime. And it was like watching a train wreck happen in front of your eyes. And I knew it was going to happen too, because I just feel like we lose every single overtime game. I don't know if it's just me. I don't know how many overtime games we've had in like the 5 or 6 years I've been following Indiana basketball, but I feel like we go to overtime and we lose. And it's not just we lose, we just like score 2 points in the overtime. We can't score. It's the same problem every year, year after year. And it's that guard play in overtime is awful. And then we have defensive lapses at the most crucial times. And it's that mental toughness that comes back and kicks us in the butt. It's been the problem for 4 years now. And, unironically, it's the same coach that's had the same problems for 4 years. And so people want solutions to these problems. And I think there's a very easy and honest solution in front of us. And it's that this coaching staff not working anymore.
Yeah.
They had a shot. They had their 4 years. They've gotten their players in. And speaking of getting their players in, Jevan, you were talking about this before the podcast. You can shout out your take on the guard situation and Andre Cubelo. Go ahead.
Well. So what I was saying was, listen, everyone knows if you've listened to me on this podcast or if you've talked to me about IU basketball, I am a Christian Lander supporter through and through. I've watched him for the last 2 years in high school. I'm seeing him, start to progress on the offensive side of the ball so far this year, and especially within the last 2 or 3 games for IU. But Andre Cubelo is everything that we wanted Christian Lander to be. He is a guard that can pass the ball. He's a guard. I mean, and we talked about it before. That last pass to Kofi Coburn to seal the deal where he tapped it off with a dunk. It was an NBA level pass. He works the pick and roll well as a freshman. He can shoot. He can extend. He can get to the basket. He creates. He's literally everything that I wanted Christian Lander to be this year. Not saying that I don't think Lander will ever get to that because he is a 5-star. He has an ample amount of potential. It's just that last night it really showed that Cubelo is everything that I wanted Lander to be this far in the season.
And remember, Cubelo was a target for IU last year in recruiting. He was one of those guys that we got into his recruitment maybe a little bit later than we should have, and was nationally a guard that a lot of people really liked. Thought he was really chippy and did a lot of really good things. Was a really good passer of the ball, facilitator, as they might say. And they really liked Cubelo. And this is just a theme, right? Is that Archie misses coming back to haunt us or play well against us. You looked at the UConn game last year. James Bouknight has turned into one heck of a player for UConn. That's somebody that we're in recruitment. David Duke at Providence, who we've played last 2 years, was a recruiting target. Very good guard. Cubelo looked great last night. And in both games that he's played against IU and is looking better as the season goes on, a recruiting target for IU. You can go up and down the list of people that we've missed on, but it's just sad to look at it because then you look at our guards and Phinisee was terrible. Had his worst game in an IU uniform on Tuesday night. It was really rough to watch. Fouled out, 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, had a steal.
He had his worst game, and if he scores one basket, we're looking at we're going, yeah, he played terrible, but that one basket, but no, he didn't even score 1 point. Forget the rebounds and the assist. Well, the assist is a point guard. You have to have some assists being our starting point guard. I have another note written down here. It's like our only aggressive point guard fouled out. Both of them fouled out, but I'm not talking about Rob.
Yeah.
Like Lander was our most aggressive point guard.
Yeah. And what's crazy is we see the officiating was a little crazy, a little over the top. I'll tell you this, watching that game, there honestly wasn't a call that they made that I said, oh, it's not a foul. It felt like every whistle they called, even though it was 77 of them, felt like it actually was a personal. But with that said, there were a couple in there, like Phinisee jumping, Trent Frazier jumping on his back during the inbound pass, or Christian Lander fouling the three-point shooter Frazier as well, where you're going, why? I mean, why are you even doing that? And I think we do need to talk about Rob Phinisee, right? Because guard play has been a fundamental issue for Indiana for as long as we can think about it, right? And if Indiana does move on from Archie Miller, it seems like Rob Phinisee will be exhibit one as to why this didn't work out. Because Phinisee started off as a freshman. We said, wow, this is a guy who, he averaged 7 points per game, 3 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game in his freshman season. And we said, okay, you know what? That's year. It was a little bit of a technical issue there, but we said that's year one. And then once Romeo Langford moves on, we're going to see Rob Phinisee really take the bull by the horns, and it just hasn't happened. And I don't know what the answer is. And look, you look at the stat line, and I know stats aren't everything, but 13 minutes and nothing across the board does bring us to a $1 million question with this team. Matt, I'm going to ask it to you. I understand Christian Lander's not perfect, but do you hand over the keys to the car from Rob Phinisee to Christian Lander as soon as Sunday's game against Iowa, put Lander in the starting 5, and let Phinisee do what he can off the bench? Is it time to make that switch?
Yeah, I think so. Honestly, for the future of the program, I hope that's the case, right? Like, Rob's a junior and Christian's a freshman, and the freshman is outplaying the junior. Why are you not starting the freshman? Why are you not giving the freshman more minutes? Like, it's just better. He's going to grow exponentially over those minutes. Like, at this point as a junior, Rob is who he is as a player, right? For going from junior year to senior year, you're looking at a jump in production maybe, but the player still stays the same. A player his freshman year can be a completely different player his sophomore year and then his junior year and senior year. He can mold, he can change, especially given that he will have a regular off season, hopefully this summer, to work on things, not some weird COVID convoluted, he's trying to finish high school thing, right? He has a full year or full off season to do something. And fix his game. There is no fixing Rob Phinisee's game. His random half-ass dribbling into the lane and turning around, probing, as one might say, his fouls, his turning off on defense at the most crucial times, lack of just creativity on the offensive end. None of this is going to be changed in an off season. So just give over the reins to Christian.
Yeah,
Jevan, I know you have a thought on this, and Nithin, you too. And
it's really disappointing, right? Because I think we all a couple years ago loved Rob Phinisee more than anyone else on the roster, even more than guys like Romeo Langford and Jevan Morgan.
Yes.
He went out and he hit that shot against Butler, and he went out and he played tenacious defense. And Jevan, I mean, are you on board with the switch? Do you think Phinisee needs to get the bench and give Lander the starting role?
Before I answer that, I need to say that like Rob's two biggest strengths are his on-ball defense and his athleticism. And like you said, Matt, there are times throughout the game where he is our best on-ball defender by far, and there are times where he shuts down, and we don't know I could blow by him. And then he doesn't use his athleticism to really get to the rim anymore. I mean, he's shown spurts to here and there, but I don't know. I'm kind of done with Rob. I feel like he's in my class, so like I feel like maybe I have to ride with him a little bit. But what is the negative to Lander starting at this point? I mean, we're gonna lose a few more games at this point.
That's the thing, right? Because Indiana, you look at the game by game, right? They've dropped their last two. They've struggled to get much of anything going, except they somehow walked into Iowa City and won by 12.
Lander is he's our most creative person with the ball. He is our fastest ball handler. I don't know. I just feel like this could be a move. Honestly, this is a really bold take. If he starts Lander for the rest of the season, I think this could be a move that might save Archie Miller.
Well, and why not? I mean, here's the deal, right? If you're Archie Miller, if you're someone on that staff, or even if you're a player on the team, you've got to think of things to shake it up at this point. You've lost 2 in a row. You lost 3 of 4. You're 4-6 in Big Ten play. You've got to figure out something to shake it up. So Matt, when you think of possible alternate solutions, and as you guys can tell listening to the show, it's going to be very free flowing. It's going to be a lot of conversation back and forth. We called it February Fury for a reason, and you might look at the KenPom ratings and say, hey, Indiana's still 27th, 28th, and they're treading water and they're doing fine, and they're in all of the bracket predictions right now. Matt, it's obviously not happening right now. So what other solutions are out there that Archie Miller and Indiana can use to turn this around as soon as Sunday afternoon?
I think Jevan came up with the easiest one, which is start Christian Lander. I think the second easiest one is play less Trey Galloway and more Anthony Leal. And that's nothing against Trey Galloway. He's done a great job as a freshman. He stepped into the starting lineup as a freshman, but he offers nothing on the offensive end. Basically nothing. He's a secondary playmaker who had a hard time in overtime. It was really hard to watch him be the only offensive threat in overtime, which was him driving into the lane, trying to wildly shoot the ball and or pass the ball off balance. That was Indiana's offense for the 6 minutes in overtime. Didn't work. I'd much rather see that position as Leal. If you're going to step out there and not do anything, I want him to step that body to be a person that's going to step out there and at least be a threat. And Anthony Leal is a threat from 3. I'd rather him play over Lander. That doesn't mean Lander doesn't get minutes. I like his defense. I like his attitude at times and his hustle. I like that about him. He can play. Same thing goes for the rest of the team. More offense through Race Thompson. I like when Race Thompson plays. When Race Thompson plays well, we are playing well. And at times in the first half, when we were playing well, Race Thompson was also playing well. He had a couple really nice floaters in the lane, in and around just below the free throw line. I like that. That's a good shot to have in his arsenal, especially as playing the 4. And then my third solution is stop playing big. I don't understand what it is about this team. Somebody posted it in our Slack channel after the game, and I totally agree with it. I need to echo it. We play like a big team, but our tallest player is Trey Jackson Davis at 6'9". I don't understand. Change the offense. We're not a big team. We're a small team. We have one big, and we have Race Thompson as our second big. If Joey's in the game and then Trace is in the game, that's different. I understand it needed to play big. This, no, doesn't cut it. Doesn't work. Also, on the offense, I'm going on a rant here, but you guys can talk about anything.
Well, that's what tonight's about, because like I said earlier, even though it's been 2 days, I titled this episode February Fury for a reason. It still bothers me that Indiana blew that game on Tuesday. I don't care that Illinois is the favorite. I don't care that Illinois is the number 12 team in the country. I don't care the top 10 in Ken Pom. That was a game Indiana needed to finish off. Matt, what were you about to say?
Anyways, the fourth thing is when teams switch, which a lot of teams do nowadays, even Indiana does, when teams switch, find the mismatch. There has to be one. And I don't care that it's some weird ISO ball thing. Just change the offense. We have players like Christian Lander who can take somebody off the dribble and blow by. If he has a big on him, let him cook. Let him go to work. If Trace Jackson Davis has somebody who is smaller on him, let him have the ball. If Armand has somebody that can't guard him, let Armand go. Let the other guys stand on the wings and be ready to shoot the ball and or look to drive. Look to cut. It's insane to me that, we have a mismatch. Okay, let's do a dribble handoff and get the right guy back on him. It doesn't make any sense. Take the ball back out, back it up, create space, and attack. I don't understand why this offense can't attack. It drives me insane.
Yeah, let's just call it what it is.
There you go.
There was a stretch, and I put it in the Slack group message, where it was Lander, Leal, Galloway, Geronimo, and Thompson. Let's just give the keys not just to Lander, the freshman class.
Yes.
Because some of our best ball whenever those 4 are playing. I know we just talked about Galloway, how he struggles on the offensive end. But if you have Leal next to him, Lander next to him, first of all 3 of them have played AAU ball together for the last 2 or 3 years. They have that chemistry, and it's not going to do anything but just make them better for years to come, because that Big Ten experience is something that you can't get anywhere other in the country.
And it's funny you mentioned that, Jevan, because we just threw out a weekly podcast poll over on the Hoosier Sound, and I asked our listeners, hey, which freshman do you believe deserves more playing time the rest of the season? And right now, Christian Lander leads the way at 50% of the vote, Jordan Geronimo at 22%, Galloway and Leal are tied at 14%. But the funny part is that there were 2 responses that said all of the above should be an option, and that's exactly where I think you're coming from, Jevan. Shout out to people named Fury from the Sky as well as Nightman 859. But I think what it comes down to a bigger picture, to a larger degree, is currently in Archie Miller's system, Indiana's making basketball a lot harder than it needs to be. And I know it's ridiculous hearing that from someone who is sitting on a desk chair hosting a podcast.
Yeah.
But when you go and watch some other teams play, whether it's the Big Ten or across the top 25 in college basketball, you look at Indiana, okay? I threw my hands up in the air and flung my pencil 20 feet when at the end of regulation, they spaced the floor out, gave Armand Franklin the basketball, and he just drove by his guy for a layup. And I know it's not going to be that easy all the time, but when you run the same play, or the same set at least, repeatedly from the half court, and you're not getting points out of it, and then you see Armand Franklin breeze by his guy for a layup, you ask questions. and let's ask questions about the system, because I think the system, which it seems like it takes a page out of Hoosiers, the movie, right? Where you've got to pass the ball 8 times before someone takes a shot and you got to work it inside out. Jevan, I know you've got some basketball experience. What is working with this system? What isn't working with this system? Because right now it just seems like Indiana's pulling teeth on offense, and it doesn't look fun at all.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the half-court offense is, it hurts your eyes sometimes to watch. What is working with IU but doesn't happen very much is transition offense, except for one play in that game last night where I think it was – I know Galloway and Jackson Davis were involved, and Galloway ended up getting the ball, and Trace was running right behind him with no one involved and didn't get the ball for some reason where he could have thrown it down. And after the play, he looked at him, he said, "Just give me the ball, I'll dunk it." He motioned like, "I'll just dunk it." And they ended up not scoring, and they ended up getting the ball, but they didn't score. And I think that came off of Rob's only stat of the night with that steal. But what needs to happen is we need to get more transition offense. And when you play the kind of defense that we do at times, that's there. But for some reason, we just don't take advantage of it. But like you said, our half court, I could scout against our half court offense, and that's not saying much about our half court offense. It's dribble handoff. Look in the post. If it's not there, pass it out. And if Trace gets the ball, sometimes he just throws it up off the glass, and it just doesn't look good for Trace. I don't know. It's just there's a lot wrong with our offense.
We'll move on to our next segment here in a moment. But first, it's time for Who Won the Week in IU Sports, where you look around Hoosier Nation, we pick out players or people who have gone out and done big things this last week moving on. And my gosh, if you guys haven't paid attention, the Indiana Hoosiers, who are playing in the NBA right now, are absolutely crushing it. And it's one of those things that I look at on a nightly basis, and it reminds me why Indiana is still a very appealing target for some of the best high school players in the nation. Because when you see guys like OG Anunoby and Thomas Bryant and Cody Zeller and Eric Gordon and Victor Oladipo go out and put huge numbers and get those huge contracts, you see why there's that big appeal. Man, we sent out a tweet over at Indiana HQ the other day, and that's another reason to follow that account. And look, we're at every basketball game for the most part this season. We've got people who, all three of us on this podcast, have seen this team play in person, which I know all of you listening would love to do desperately. And my gosh, Indiana needs 17,000 fans at its home games after dropping its 4th straight at Assembly Hall. But my gosh, when you go out and you see these guys crush it, OG Anunoby had 30 points the other night against Indiana. We talked about him on our podcast the other day. And then Cody Zeller, he's posterized Giannis Antetokounmpo on the Bucks a few days ago. And my gosh, I didn't see him throw a dunk down like that at Assembly Hall or even with the Hoosiers. But he went out and absolutely obliterated Giannis inside. I'm sure they're going to sell that poster at TIS or the IU bookstore at sometime soon. And so, Juwan Morgan put up a career high last week. Eric Gordon scored 33. So it's not just the obvious players. I think Oladipo at Houston on something like a 4 or 5 game win streak after he was traded to the Rockets. So really, really impressive stuff from the Hoosiers in the NBA. So let's turn the page here and talk about something that I know a lot of people want to talk about, and that's the NCAA tournament. This Indiana team, which I looked at the start of the season as an NCAA tournament shoo-in, and a team that should very much be competing for a top 4 or top 5 seed in the Big Dance, is, according to Delphi Bracketology, a 10 seed right now. According to Joe Lunardi, the Hoosiers are an 11 seed. So, Matt, I'm going to ask you this. As we keep going forward, the NCAA tournament is almost like this pipe dream that Indiana is chasing, right? The Hoosiers haven't made it in 4 or 5 years. Is at this point, okay, forget what we thought about the start of the season. At this point, is getting there good enough? Because this schedule coming up is horrible. So given where Indiana is right now, can we just make it as a goal? Like, Indiana's just got to make the NCAA tournament?
No, that was the goal the first 2 years of Archie's tenure. That was the goal, was make the tournament. That was just the first hump to get over. The last 2 years have been, okay, let's compete in the Big Ten. Are we competing in the Big Ten? Is 4 and 6 competing in the Big Ten? No, it's not competing in the Big Ten. It's really not. Like, we're in, 8th place? And we're supposed to be proud that we're above teams like Michigan State, who lost by 30 to Rutgers, by the way. Like, I don't understand this trivial statement that is, well, once you make the big or trivial thought that once you make the NCAA tournament, then Archie's going to win Big Ten titles and he's going to go and win a national championship and banner 6 and 7, 8, 9, 10 are coming and it's going to be great. Like, I don't understand. Like, making the tournament great. We're one of the 64 teams that deserve to make the tournament this year. And you could say, like, okay, for at the at-large bids, it's like, well, it's one of the top 40-something teams. Like, great. Cool. Congratulations, Archie. You made IU as, like, the third, highest budget for basketball, one of the top 44 teams in the in college basketball. Like, congratulations. Would you like an extension? I don't understand. Like, we should make the tournament every year. That is the baseline of, we had a terrible year this year. We were an 11th seed. You know what? Most of the guys are returning next year. We're 11th seed. Maybe we'll compete for top 4 in the Big Ten next year. We'll be back. That should be the baseline. Archie hasn't even reached that in 4 years. This is his team with 4 years worth of guys, and he hasn't done that. That should not be the baseline. At year 4, year 5, going into year 5, we should be looking at winning a Big Ten title. We should be looking at a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. We are nowhere close to that. You look at the team that's going to be returning next year, and you look up and down the roster and go, is this team any better than last year's? And the answer to me, looking at the next year, is no, it's not. It's the same team. Like, it's going to have the same problems. They're not. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any different idea about that at all?
Jevan, what are your thoughts as far as, look, at this point, when Indiana's 9-8, 4-6, and have teams like Iowa and Ohio State on the road, and Minnesota at home, and Rutgers on the road, and potentially 2 games against Michigan, and a road game in West Lafayette coming up, at this point, is getting into the big dance the focus? Forget everything else.
When looking at just this year, the answer is yes. But if you look at the entire Miller tenure, like Matt was saying, it's like, this should have already been something that's been accomplished type of thing. But looking at just this year, you have to look at it for what it is, right? Like, we did win in Iowa. We snuck away not having to play Michigan the first time. Whether that gets rescheduled, we'll see. But I mean, if we get there, we get there, and let's make a run. Let's be why not be that Cinderella story that maybe makes a Sweet 16, maybe makes an Elite 8, Final 4. Who knows?
No one's gonna look at Indiana as a Cinderella, but it does remind me of some Kentucky teams we've seen in the past, oddly enough, that sort of had a rough regular season and entered as an 8-9 seed.
Cinderella to us, because we see it for what it is, right?
Well, and the other thing I'll say is this, and I've mentioned multiple times how all 3 of us have seen this team in person, and this is something I'm going to say just my opinion, my perspective, and I mentioned it on this podcast before. I don't want to hear the E word and the T word anymore, effort and toughness, because I watched this team. And I remember specifically the Purdue game and then the Rutgers game where I was at Assembly Hall, there in person, 30, 40, 50 feet away from the action. I heard some of the loudest collisions, some of the loudest physical contact that I've heard in any basketball game over the last few years. And it wasn't just the fact that fans weren't in attendance. These guys care. And these guys put a lot of work into what they're doing. And for the 40 or 45 or the 50 minutes they play, they're laying it all out on the line. And on a general picture, it does seem like, while you obviously have criticisms of a few guys on the team, the players are, generally speaking, easy to root for. And the problem now that this team is facing is you're hearing a lot of murmurs around the effort isn't there, the toughness isn't there. And that's just a cop-out. That's just a cop-out for people who can't identify the problems on this team, which is shooting the basketball, scoring in transition, getting key stops when they need to get them. And so if Indiana does make the tournament, this is a team that if they can open up the floor and can give Christian Laettner the starting point guard job and can give maybe Jordan Geronimo a few more minutes, and they can reach their ceiling. So, Matt, my question to you is this. For Indiana to win 4 or 5 or 6 of their 8 remaining scheduled games, especially out of the veteran group, who really needs to step up, assuming that they get the playing time?
Out of the veteran group, I mean, it's going to have to be Al, because I don't see Rob stepping up. Especially after this performance and previous performances this year, he can't be somebody that you can count on to be consistent. So the only other person that's consistently there as an upperclassman, sadly, is Al Durham. So Al is going to have to step up. One thing he could do is attack the rim more. That would be nice. Also, consistently shooting the ball would be great. He had, I want to say, 13 points in the game. Yeah, he had 13 points in the game. He did not score for the final, 26 minutes of the game. So he had 13 points in the first half and then was just disappeared for the second half and overtime. So as a senior and a senior captain, it'd be nice to get some second half contributions from Al.
Yeah.
It's just so confusing to me that we have a senior guard in Al Durham who's played for 4 years and basically started for 4 years, right? Like, you remember he came on his freshman year. They started him a couple games. And he started sophomore, junior, senior year. No. We have an upperclassman point guard and Rob Phinisee, a junior. We have a junior, or technically junior, in Jerome, and a junior in Race Thompson, I believe.
Yep, redshirt junior, yeah.
The only one of those guys that I actually count on from a game-to-game basis to have a good performance is Race Thompson.
Yep, absolutely.
And the
100%.
only one that has actually developed from year 1 to year 4.
Year 3, year 4, yeah.
It's year 4 because he redshirted year, but year 3 for eligibility-wise for Race Thompson. It's a player development problem at this point. You look up and down the roster, it's really bad.
And it makes you want to pull your limited hair out.
Exactly. My hairline, I feel like I started to recede because of the lack of player development. And it's so obvious. The problems are obvious. The solutions are actually somewhat obvious. If I can come up with 4 different solutions to a question that Nithin asked me about the program on the spot that makes sense, Archie, with his so many years of basketball experience.
He's a smart guy. He's taken Dayton to the Elite Eight. He's coached at Ohio State, Arizona.
And the 3 assistant coaches, might I add,
can't
come up with a solution to these problems. Begs the question of why are we paying these guys in the first place?
Well, the high level bucks. We're talking elite level paychecks, not some average, some around there.
And I don't give any money to the university other than my student loan payments. I don't give any money to the university. But if I did give money to the university, I would definitely be questioning what the heck is going on with our basketball program at this point. Because we were sold promises when Archie came in. I remember I was at the press conference. We will be competing in 4 years. This is a program rebuilding, but 4 years of Archie rebuilding the program, and we are going to start to see results. That result on Tuesday night is not acceptable of the 4 years of salary that we've paid, the 3 years of absolute basketball torture that I have been, and we all as fans have been allowed to endure on the premise that Year 4 is coming around. Archie will have his guys.
It
was Crean's
Yeah,
guys that
were
were the
ruining it.
problem.
Yeah.
That's right. And now we only have one senior. There's only one guy recruited by Crean's class, and that is Al Durham, and he is not the problem. The problem is the first recruiting class under Archie. The problem is a lack of guard play, a lack of player development, a lack of consistency. All of those things, all 4 of those things are something that he could have changed in his 4 years at Indiana and has not. So I tweeted this after the game on Tuesday. I was team give Archie time. I was sick of the results last 3 years. It's been really hard to talk about. It's really hard in the winter months when you're already slightly depressed because of the weather. And then you have to come on and talk about this basketball team.
You're in Florida, Matt.
Okay, I was in Indiana for a week. I got my winter fix. Anyways, it's already hard enough. It's winter. We want to talk about basketball. It's disappointing. It's hard to come on the podcast and talk about it. It is impossible to come on the podcast and talk about it when you had some sort of level of expectation going into the year, right? Nithin and I both projected almost 20 wins this year.
Yeah.
So we have an All-American and Trey Jackson Davis. Some of the guys should come in and be able to be better than what they were last year. There's no way that there's 4 years of just no development at all for most of these players. 1, 2, 3 can't fool me a 4th time. And finally it's happened. So I am so tired. Do you guys feel the same way? Because it's really bad.
Well, this is the thing. The contract, for those of you who may not know, basically guarantees Archie Miller 5 seasons. Okay, and I know you might hear some stuff about buyout and whatever here, there, wherever. Bottom line is Archie Miller and the school negotiated and said, hey, look, for the most part, we're going to give you 5 years to figure it out. So it would be hard for me to see this team move on from him after this season. The buyout, all that sort of thing reduces considerably after year 5. But Scott Dolson, Indiana guy, athletic director, we'll see where it goes from there. But, Jevan, as I look at this, I think the biggest myth is the fact that the NCAA tournament is what matters. Because in college basketball, you've got big-time regular season games and big-time rivalry games like you had against Purdue, like you had against Illinois, but you keep falling short. What's next for this basketball team? Like, if they go out and win Sunday against Iowa and sweep the Hawkeyes, does the narrative change? Because we're going to talk about this Iowa game in a minute. Does the narrative change around this team if they sweep the Hawkeyes, a team that's in the top 10 everywhere you look?
Well, it depends on how they do it, in my opinion. Because if they do what we hope they will, and let's say they give Lander the keys, they make Rob have a more of an off the bench role than more the starting role. Then there's a little bit of if they beat Iowa doing that, there's a lot of optimism moving forward. But if they do it if they play Iowa, they beat them just like they did a week and a half ago. What has happened after big wins that makes me think that something good is going to continue to happen after we beat Iowa again? That's the question that comes in my mind. I'm sure we talked about before. We're 2-9 after we win against the top 20 team. So it all, in my eyes, depends on how we do it. If we give Lander the keys, I think Lander is the key moving forward. And you guys know I'm a big Lander guy, so you might not hear that anywhere else. But in my eyes, he is the key moving forward, and his Archie's saving grace in keeping his job.
Yeah, and just on the Lander note, I will say this: go watch him play against Rutgers. So the game from a week and a half ago, he was more engaged defensively. He was more intense as far as covering his defensive assignments that I had seen any Indiana player under Archie Miller up to this point. And I know it's for a limited amount of time. It was 10, 12 minutes that he played against Rutgers. But the way he was sprinting up and down the floor, engaged, tight up on his assignment, communicating, stunting, doing all sort of thing. If he's bringing out the defensive end, and if he's knocking down a couple threes like he did against Illinois, certainly that would be interesting. Yeah, we're going to talk about Iowa in a minute. We're going to preview that game. We're going to ask a lot of interesting questions. We're going to get predictions here in a minute. But first, a social media shout out. And real quick, I just wanted to let all of you know that over on Indiana HQ, you can follow Indiana HQ on Twitter. You can look at Indiana HQ on YouTube. We've got a lot of exciting stuff coming out here. We've got recaps after every game. We've got an article right now that's pinned to our Twitter profile that our lawyer expert Mike put together about IU's contract with Adidas. And if that's something you're curious about, I would head over to our social media right now and give that a look, because it is a real deep dive into Indiana's contract with that big-time shoemaking giant. Talks about all sorts of incentives and things like that. I was interested. I'm glad we put that together, so I would highly recommend that. Also on Indiana HQ, we've got power rankings that come out every Friday morning. We've got that coming out for you guys, and you should be able to look at that when you listen. We're going to rank all the Big Ten teams from top to bottom, and so much more. So let's turn the page. First, we've got to talk about Malachi Bennett. It's a football recruit that Indiana landed. I know, okay, might get a little sick of the basketball talk here. We're going to wrap up with our Iowa preview. But on the football field, Tom Allen and Grant Hurd, IU's wide receivers coach, landed a big-time class of 21 wide receiver. Malachi Holt Bennett, who's the nephew of former Bears wide receiver Earl Bennett, committed to Indiana earlier this week, joining an Indiana wide receiver group that's pretty deep. You think about Ty Freifogel, who's going to be on the roster, Miles Marshall, David Ellis, DJ Matthews transferring in from Florida State, Jaquez Smith, the highly rated freshman who's coming in, and now Malachi Holt Bennett, a 6'2", 280-pound wide receiver who, according to Rivals expert Chad Simmons, is a bit of a wiry frame, but he'll come in. He's really fast. He'll add muscle. He was originally a UAB commit before switching on that and coming to Indiana, but don't let that fool you. He's a fringe 3-4 star wide receiver and a bunch of SEC offers. South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee wanted him to play for him. He went to UAB. He's from Alabama. I think he wanted to go to a smaller school to really put them on the map even more, especially after they restarted their football program recently. But Holt Bennett ended up committing to Indiana and officially signing. Signing day was earlier this week. It was yesterday, the 3rd. So Malachi Holt Bennett is a player you're going to see wearing an Indiana jersey for years to come. Now let's talk about Iowa. So we're facing a Hawkeyes team that, well, the Hoosiers somehow beat. They beat them 2 weeks ago, knocking them off by 12 in Iowa City, a game that I think a lot of us thought was going to be a launching pad for this team before they lost to Rutgers and Illinois. We all know who the stars on Iowa are: Luka Garza, Joe Wieskamp, Jordan Bohannon. You can list them all. Iowa's 4th in the country on KenPom. They have the top-rated offense, the 117th ranked defense. Jevan, as people turn this game on Sunday afternoon at noon on Fox, the flagship network, what should they be looking out for, and what does Indiana have to give themselves a chance and try to sweep the Hawkeyes?
I'm gonna hit copy and paste with what Matt said last time we talked about this game, and I don't mean to steal what you're gonna say. If you do,
no, go,
dang
please.
It. But not Illinois. I can't get that game out of my mind. Iowa can't be hot when shooting. I mean, they're gonna have to come out and have another poor performance behind the line, behind the 3-point line, like they did a couple weeks ago when we went into Iowa and won. But as far as what you need to see on IU's side of the ball, look for Trace Jackson Davis to come out and be dominant again. That's going to have to be very prominent, and it's something that has to be mentioned throughout the week preparing for him, that Trace has to come out and he can't start 1 for 7 or 1 for 8, wherever he did against Illinois. I mean, at some point there has to be a time where the entire team just realizes that maybe it's time to get the ball in his hands a little bit more. He came back to play with Trace Jackson Davis. Let them play together. So look for that whenever they play Iowa on the 5th, the 6th, right?
Sunday. Yep. Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, the 7th.
Sunday.
Yeah. And Matt, same question to you. You know, what's the matchup that Indiana needs to win? What do the Hoosiers have to do to overcome the Hawkeyes, who, according to KenPom, are projected to win this game 77-74?
They need a miracle. That's what they need. That's what they need. Because Iowa's going to be pissed. You know, Fran McCaffrey's just going to take a picture of their 3-point shooting percentage and post it on every single one of their lockers and go, you see what you did to yourself last time we played this team? We lost by 12. Could you imagine if you made like 5 of those 3-pointers? I just put it on their locker. And that's going to be it. And they're going to come out. And I can already see it because I've watched Jordan Bohannon do this before to me. He's going to have 30. And I don't know how he's going to have 30, but he's going to have 30. He's going to be like a lightning rod in a lightning strike. He's just going to be lighting it up for everyone. So, they're going to need to stop the guards, the Iowa guards, for a real serious answer. That's not just a miracle. They're going to stop Iowa's guards, and they're going to need to make everything tough for Luka Garza. Luka is going to get his points because he's just the best player in college basketball. But if he has a really bad, inefficient night, that is the best thing you can ask for. So make him inefficient, make it hard on the guards, and make some 3-pointers, and we have a chance. We have a chance, but it's in Iowa City, and they're going to be mad. They're going to want revenge.
No, it's in Assembly Hall. It's in Bloomington, but
it's in Assembly Hall. Sorry, it's in Assembly Hall. But they're still going to want revenge for losing in Iowa City.
And then never mind the fact that Archie Miller said Iowa is as good as Rutgers, or Rutgers is as good as Iowa. That's probably some bullets.
Well, they went on a 3-game win streak, which is more than we have this year in the Big Ten. So maybe they are good.
Well, they're not. But look,
they're not.
The one guy I'm going to shout out for this game coming up is Jordan Geronimo. We just saw him have a pretty good game against the Hawkeyes a couple weeks ago with Race Thompson and Trace Jackson Davis playing so much on Tuesday. I think you might see Jordan Geronimo get a little bit more run on Sunday. Something interesting to note, the Hawkeyes are playing right now. As we're recording this podcast, they're playing on Thursday night here against the Ohio State Buckeyes. It's probably going to be a close game, a hard-fought game. So the Hoosiers will have a rest advantage, having an extra couple days to sort of sleep on that loss to Illinois back on Tuesday. So let's wrap up with this. Jevan and Matt, I'm going to start with you, Jevan. Let's get a prediction. Who wins Indiana, Iowa Sunday afternoon, and by how much?
Well, really quick, I don't mean to based on what Matt said about Iowa being upset. I mean, why shouldn't Indiana be upset coming off a loss where they should have won? They have every right to be, mad or upset, whatever word you want to use to going into this next game. That's the last I'm going to say about that until I get to this prediction. I'm going to Illinois. It keeps coming back in my head.
Boo!
Iowa's going to win. Unfortunately, they're going to come into Bloomington and they're going to win by, I think what Kim Pom had it at 77-75.
74, 3-point game.
80-68.
There you go. Matt, how about you? What are your thoughts? Who wins by how much?
I think this is the easiest bet I have ever made.
There's
man. Actually no way Indiana wins this. I have more faith in the Buccaneers winning the Super Bowl than I do in IU winning this game. They're talking about Super Bowl Sunday. I brought up a little reference. I thought I'd try.
Okay, all right.
So I put a lot of money on Indiana to not only lose but not cover.
Is this a little bit of reverse psychology?
You're absolutely correct. I would love nothing more than us to win this game. I want to feel happy after watching a basketball game. But
I don't want anybody to think that we don't want IU to win.
No, absolutely. We give our predictions and then we go and cry about it into our pillows. All right. It's just not fun. It is not fun. But I don't think we have a chance. I don't think.
Yeah,
it's Assembly Hall too. It's Assembly Hall. We talked about this before. It's Assembly Hall. Everybody who comes into Assembly Hall all of a sudden shoots 4 percentage points better than they.
I don't know what it is, except Iowa last year, except
for Iowa last year.
To think about. Indiana's not going to lose 5 straight home games, right? I mean, look. I think Indiana's going to win. I think the Hoosiers will find a way. And I don't know exactly how it's going to happen. But I think, I like what I see out of the players. It's just a matter of are they put in the right positions to help them win. And I think I said 5 straight home losses. It's actually 4 straight home losses in case there are people out there taking score at home. It would be the 5th home loss, the 4th straight if Indiana loses to Iowa on Sunday. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Hoosiers will win, and they're going to have 2 wins over number 8 Iowa on their resume.
I want some of that copium you're having.
Does 2 wins against the same top 10 team look better than 2 wins against 2 different top 10 teams?
Matt, you go first.
Oh, why did you have to do that to me? No, I think I'd rather have 2 wins over 2 different teams because it shows you can beat 2 top 10 teams with different styles of play. If you match up well against an Iowa team and you beat them twice, then to me it's like, it's just the matchup.
It depends on the team. If that, I think 2 wins over Iowa looks pretty damn great. I think it does.
2 wins over top 10 teams looks great regardless.
If, in other words, I think 2 wins over Iowa would hold a little bit more water to me than a win over Iowa and a win over Illinois, or a win over Iowa and over Michigan. Now, look, Indiana makes, and I think a lot of people disagree. I think Iowa's really good. I think they're a team that could win it all. Indiana beat Michigan State twice a couple years ago, and that was pretty sweet, even though Indiana didn't make the NCAA tournament.
We lost
Look, the Spartans made the Final Four, and guess what? That entire offseason, you could say the Hoosiers beat a Final Four team twice for some reason.
I love those moral victories.
Anyway,
only victories we get now.
Yeah, I know.
Well, here you go. Hey, except Sunday, if you ask me. So, look, let's wrap it up, boys. Matt, your final thoughts tonight. Wrap us up. Feel free to throw in a Super Bowl prediction. I don't do whatever you feel like doing. The floor is yours, and then Jevan, I'll toss it over to you after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tough couple days in the IU basketball realm. I don't think if you couldn't tell from me ranting about 7 different times on this podcast and my voice slowly getting higher as I get angrier about what I'm talking about. But yeah, hopefully we get some good transfers for next year, and maybe we find the money to let go of a coach. And yeah, all good stuff on this. Oh, Super Bowl preview. Chiefs win. There you go. There's the prediction.
All right, Jevan, it's over to you.
I'm not looking towards the future just like Matt is just yet. There's still a lot of basketball to be played this year, so don't go away from Indiana basketball as easy as that could be. Just stick through it. Like Matt always says, for every game that they play bad, there's always a game where they play good. So hopefully we can start coming up with more wins in those games where we play well.
Do I say that?
I've heard you say it. You've said about every game, not every game, but for every moment that we play bad, there's always some bright moments. Hopefully we get another one of those bright moments this weekend on Sunday. And Super Bowl prediction, it's really hard to bet against Brady. I've been a Colts fan for too long. To don't bet against Brady.
Oh, man. All right, I'll just start with the Super Bowl prediction. I think it will be Kansas City. They've just got too many weapons. If you bet against Brady against Nick Foles, that paid off for you.
That was great. That was awesome. Now we don't have a coach.
Well, you didn't even interview Eric Bieniemy, but whatever. That's a different conversation. I think the Chiefs will win. It'll be a good game. It'll be a close game. Look, hey, third phase, special teams. It's always important. But as far as my closing thoughts, all I'm going to say is look around college basketball right now. A lot of your blue bloods are struggling, okay? Kentucky's struggling, Duke's struggling, Michigan State, North Carolina, UCLA, and I'm sure there are a few others that I'm missing. And I think a big reason for that is basketball has modernized itself now more than ever, okay? The teams that have a competitive advantage are the teams that run up and down the floor and take good shots and play disciplined basketball. And the three-pointer doesn't always have to be a part of it, but it doesn't hurt if you can have a few guys who take quality threes and can make them. It's why Alabama's in the top 10. Okay, basketball is changing right before your very eyes. And it's why teams like Gonzaga and Alabama and whoever, Texas, it's why they're at the top. Baylor, it's why they're at the top. And they may not have won anything in the past, but they're doing the stuff that you need to do nowadays to win games. And adjusting on the fly is important, especially when you're in a tough conference like the Big 12 or the Big 10 or the ACC. Being able to adjust on the fly, sit guys for not playing well, play guys who are playing well. That's the type of stuff that helps you jump into the top 10 and string off a few wins in a row. But that about wraps it up for our 180th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Thank you to our live audience. You are all beautiful people. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at the Hoosier Sound and at Indiana HQ to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. Lastly, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. That's the stuff that's important and really helps us grow this podcast. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.
Peace and